This week was a very special week. We officially released some 3P running tights, my Mach 5 Aero running tights, half tights, and it was really cool. It was really cool to one, to see people's response, and then two, to actually sell some of the stuff. I've been using Shopify, and I do have my notifications on, so when you guys buy, I get a notification that somebody bought something. So it was really cool to get that notification that somebody bought something. Like I said, I made the 3P Endurance Company because I like making equipment that I like to use, and like I said, if I use it and then someone else thinks it's cool enough that they'll buy it, it's just a plus. So one thing I love about this tight is that that it has pockets on it. So as you can see, of course I got one with me. As you can see, it has the pockets to hold all your gels and things. Of course, it has the Endurance Company on the side. It has the pocket for your phone. You can also put gels there too. And then it has the pockets in the back, and they're pretty deep pockets. But it also, like, one thing I love about it is it's kind of like high-waisted, so it doesn't feel like your stuff is like you have stuff on you. It doesn't feel like when you're running, you're not stuff is not bouncing around. And like I said, it's a product that I tested out before I even put it out. I wanted to see how it felt and how it would feel for other runners. And like I said, for me, I love it. And if somebody else is going to be if somebody else likes it, it's just a plus. So it's really cool to get some sales and get people wearing some 3P Endurance Co. because I made it for myself, but I made it for the people, man. So I appreciate you, everybody who's bought anything. I just appreciate it. It's kind of cool to see your stuff on other people, but also other people enjoying it and telling you that it's a good product. So thank you. And
woke up today, smile on my face, may not go my way, still got my faith, so I'll be okay. I'll be okay, I'll be okay. Running our race, just that I pace. Made some mistakes, but learned a few things, so I'll be okay. I'll be okay, I'll be okay. Yeah, I've been through it all, Looking at Goliath at the stand tall. My heart, it feel like David every time I fall. My problems look like giants, I'ma slay them all. Every single beef, I had to let it be. Spend a lot of time wasting energy. That ain't made sense to me logically. But I feel way better when I walk in peace. Please don't bring the gossip to me. I mean, no offense, I'm finding out jealousy. Only a lack of confidence. Focused on me more, focused on you less. Everybody do that, look around and we blessed. Woke up today, smile on my face. May not go my way, still got my faith. So I'll be okay. I'll be okay, I'll be okay. Running our race, just that I pace. Made some mistakes, but learned a few things. So I'll be okay. I'll be okay, I'll be okay. Yeah. I know the pain you felt, I felt it with you. I know the hate you feel, the scar tissue. Unhealed trauma is trying to kill you. But come back to love, man, we all miss you. Hey, life is like a seesaw, it's up, then it's down. It's all about progress, you can't stop now. Take a step every day, look back and see miles. Can make it to the top if you stop looking.
The whole goal of this journey of going back and just falling back in love with fitness is actually interesting because, it gives me a chance to study my mindset at the time and study how I interact with the world, how I train for some of these races, and just looking back on how I train, my mental, and what was going through my mind at the time, when I was training. And I realized that there was a lot of times where in my training I just wasn't in the headspace. I remember sitting down with a coach, and this is right after the Pittsburgh Marathon, and I sat down with a coach, a running coach, and we talked about, you know, not only just being physically capable, but mentally. How are you treating the relationships around you? You know, do you have? And I thought that it was so interesting because he said, like, do you have people that are in your life that you fell out with, or that, you know, you don't really necessarily talk to, that there was no resolve in those situations? And I can honestly, I thought about 3 or 4 people that he was talking about in the moment. I just didn't want to hear it. But we talked about, you know, relationships and being full when you're training, because you don't realize how much training has an effect on your mindset. And if everything around you is kind of chaotic, training is going to be chaotic. It kind of goes back to you know, making your bed in the morning and doing all of the things that you need to do to put yourself in the best position possible. So when I think about, when I take that thought and I think about one marathon that was a really, really good marathon for me, but I was so angry, man. I was so angry during training, angry at some of the people around me. I mean, and, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, I don't think that mentally I would have got to where I got to. I mean, if I didn't have some sort of chip on my shoulder, I needed it, you know. And I'm not to say, like, if you're listening to this and you're going through your journey, be mindful that you're going through your journey. These are only things that I can share about my journey that can help people along the way. But I just remember I was so angry at everything. And, you know, I was angry that I weighed 300 pounds at some point. I was angry at myself. I was angry at, you know, friends and, you know, people not being so supportive. I had all of these things that I was angry about, and I kind of used them, you know, to be honest with you. I kind of used those things as chips, and I didn't resolve any of those relationships that fell out or anything, because I wanted to get this goal. I just wanted to use all this negative energy and turn it into positive energy and get this goal. And you know, at the time, and this is around the time when I first started doing my YouTube videos, where I vlogged everything and I vlogged my whole experience. I remember me and my wife going to Columbus, and this was my actual first time in Columbus. So you know, it was, for me, it was just one of those things where it was tough, man. It was just one of those things where it was just me, my wife, of course, and, you know, Columbus. And I remember in this marathon, and I remember I had this goal. This is the first time I really talked about going for the sub 4 marathon. And I remember telling all my friends, I remember telling my family members, and a few people were like, that's awesome, and a few people were just like, okay, that's cool, you know. And I remember just having this chip on my shoulder, like, if anybody did anything like wrong towards me, or I felt slighted, I immediately put that into my negativity bank. And I was like, I'm going to use this to fuel myself through this marathon to get this goal. And just thinking about that, it's so interesting thinking about that idea, because I was using rage or pain or, you know, whatever it was, anger, to get me over the finish line instead of my actual training, because I really did train for a good training block that year. But I remember there was a point where, and I've done this marathon again, so I'm not that I fell off at this point again at some point in the future. But I remember getting to this point in the marathon, and it was I think it was mile 18. For some reason, I always fall apart at mile 18, but this was my first experience with it on a good training plan. And 18, I got there, and I remember thinking, I remember all I could think was, man, I gotta tell everybody that I didn't meet this goal. And that was so silly because that made me feel like, dude, you were doing it for everybody else and not doing it for yourself. And you were so angry to prove everybody wrong that you forgot to prove yourself right. Those are the moments where marathon teaches you about life. Marathon training teaches you about doing it for the right things. And although that marathon was one of my favorite marathons that I've ever done, I can look back on it and realize that I wasn't doing it. I can look back and realize that I wasn't doing it for all the right reasons, but I also can look back and take lessons away from it and go into these next marathon blocks, especially now because I didn't get a chance to appreciate the fitness level that I had. I mean, at that point, I was the most fit I've ever been. And I was so locked in, like I wasn't even, like at that point, I wasn't drinking, I was eating healthy, and all of the things. Like I was doing all of the things that you need to do to have a successful marathon block. You know, there was times where, you know, of course, you know, you have your struggles with eating and your struggles with burnout and all of those things. But for the most part, that was one of my best marathon blocks leading up to the marathon, but also just eating and just doing all of the things. But I can honestly say that I wasn't doing it for all the right reasons. And there comes a point in every marathon when it gets super hard and you got to really remind yourself what you're doing it for, why you're doing it. And at that moment when I thought about it, all I can think of is, you know what, pull it together and let's just finish. And, you know, that wasn't that. Now, I finished the marathon and I didn't get the time that I wanted to. But I think that if I can approach it any differently going forward, it's always going to be about me, my progress. How can I take those lessons and transfer it over to my life, my personal life, and, you know, my family, my son, and in business, but also not do it for the reasons that don't benefit me, because having that anger towards other people to accomplish a goal isn't necessarily the right way to approach it. Now, if you're someone like Michael Jordan, and I always go back to this story when they said that, like, I remember I was just obsessed with the idea of greatness, and I went to go study Michael Jordan. I would just watch all these YouTube videos and listen to, like, interviews with people talking about facing Michael Jordan. And one of the stories that came up was Michael Jordan would make up stories and make up things that you've said that you may have not said. You might have just been hanging out with Michael Jordan the night before, but when it comes to game time, he would make up these stories about, you might have said something to him, or you might have slighted him, you might have disrespected him, and that just gave him a competitive edge. And for me, I always thought that was so cool, that, like, you can trick your mind, or, you know, force motivation upon yourself to perform better. But with that being said, is it always the right option to do it? You know, you got to pick and choose when you want to do things. And is marathon running a good sport to pick that type of motivation? Or am I the right person for that motivation style? Like, I might not be the person that needs to be motivated by your hatred and anger for people. But that's a part of it. That's a part of learning. That's a part of growing. That's a part of learning who you are as a person and how you get through your marathon training blocks. So those are one of the things that I've thought about this year, just thinking about my past marathons. Within a month, I'll be doing my eighth full marathon. And going into it, I don't have a time specific this time around. The goal is to finish strong, finish good, and learn a little bit about my fitness in the beginning of the year, then assess what I want to do for the rest of the year. There's either 2 races on my plan for the end of this year. I'm either going to do Columbus again, or I'm going to do Lake Erie Marathon full. And the goal is to meet sub 4. But with that being said, I have to lock in on those things, doing it for the right reasons, lock in nutritions, not lock in this continued not drinking and bad habits. That doesn't mean that I have to stop. That doesn't mean that I have to have that I can't have a cheat meal every now and then. That doesn't mean that I can't have a drink every now and then. But when you're going for a specific goal, it all depends on what you're willing to give up, what you're willing to sacrifice for that specific goal. And I've seen over the years that, like, each marathon has taught me something. One marathon has taught me about nutrition. One marathon has taught me about mental toughness. One marathon has taught me about the fact that you can have all your ducks in order. You can have every plan, you can hit every workout, but the marathon is so unforgiving and it might not go your way. That's just how it goes. You can't predict the weather. You can't predict the rain. You can't predict your body that day. I mean, there's so many times where, people get sick a week before the marathon, or you can get injured. Or there's so many outside factors with the marathon. But if you do all of the things that you need to do, and you get there, and all of the stars line up for you to have that monster day that you planned, why not? Why not have that day? And over the years, marathon training has taught me that. So that's my plan. I have a full marathon this coming up in a month, and then at the end of the year, October, September, November, I plan on doing a full marathon, and we're going for the sub 4 marathon goal. As of right now, we're just reflecting and building a game plan for this year and just keep going. The main goal, though, right now is falling back in love with the process. And for me to fall back in love with the process, I have to go back. I have to, look at what I've done before, and what I've done before that works, what I've done before that didn't work, and how do we add that into the fold of the things that we want to do in the future that is going to get us to this goal. So we're just going to keep pushing, keep grinding, keep learning, and keep growing. Let's do this thing, man.